Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back. I'm almost there. This is installment 3 of Scream Week, as I am revisiting the Scream franchise and catching up on the one that I had not seen previously. For this one, I'll be focusing on 2 of the sequels to see where they are kind of deciding to take this franchise. But first, as per usual, if you enjoy these little videos about films I enjoy and want to share, or franchises that I'm revisiting, please give me a little thumbs up and consider both subscribing and hitting that little bell icon somewhere down there to get notifications when I put up new content, which is, usually once or twice a week, though occasionally I do work in a third, and especially when I do things like these franchise revisits, sometimes I throw a few extra ones up there. Anyways, be sure to also stick around to the end and share all my stuff around, because all those things really do help out the channel quite a bit. Okay. And now that all that usual YouTube stuff is out of the way, I've really been having a good time revisiting this franchise. So, the only one I hadn't seen was Part 5. And so I just wanted to rewatch, check out Part 5, all this to get ready for Part 6 to see how I enjoy it. So, for this entry, it said I'm focusing on 2 of the sequels they made after taking a long break. The first one is Scream 4 from 2011, and the second one is Scream from 2022. So they had some big breaks between 3 and 4 and between 4 and 5, about 11 years between each one of them. And as I said in my previous videos, it felt like Part 1 was basically like a perfect horror film for me. It satisfied me in every way, but Parts 2 and especially 3 had left much to be desired. I know they've got their fans. It's just subjective. Anyways, so now I had seen Part 4 in the theater back in 2011, but not since then. So it's been a long break, and like I said, some of my previous stuff is during my drinking days. Used to get kind of tanked up while at the movie theater before heading out to the club for the night. Anyways, I didn't really remember much about this. I think I knew that the girl from Heroes was in it, and that was it. But let's just quickly dive into Part 4, the synopsis of which is: 10 years have passed, and Sidney Prescott, who has put herself back together thanks in part to her writing, is visited by the Ghostface Killer. So, this one still leaned into that self-aware side, breaking that fourth wall a bit. So at the start, we get pulled in with this nice little Kristen Bell cameo and a call out to the in-universe stab films that were based on the killings of Woodsboro. So a lot of this still has that horror movie connection, thing that we had in the first film via Randy, but not so much as to be distracting like we'd seen in Part 2 and especially in Part 3, where it started to feel almost like a parody of itself. I felt like they really took this swift turn back to try to return to form a bit and attempt to kind of make this film much more serious and less distracting, especially than Part 3 was. And for me, it really worked well. Because as in the story, as these killings are happening when Sidney comes to town, we return to the everyone's a suspect kind of panic that Randy had, in the original. We get many, as expected, distractions thrown in here and there to try to keep us off the trail of who's behind these killings, while also continuing through some relationships for our legacy characters and keeping up with new ones, played by various new actors, brought in, such as Emma Roberts, Hayden Panettiere, Rory Culkin, and Alison Brie, just to name a few. But we also get this family connection laid out a little bit more in the form of the characters of Sidney's aunt and cousin, which kind of flesh out the town a little bit more. And while the whodunit portion is a bit of a stretch on this, as far as what their motivations were and everything behind it, overall it works, just for being able to sit down and enjoy it more than Part 3, which really was all that I wanted. So, even though that motive was a bit of a stretch, definitely had a lot of fun with this one. It felt like they were trying to get back to that original feel where you got that self-aware, you got that comedy, but it's not going to do so much to pull you out of it. So, we wait another 11 years. So in 2022, they came out with Scream, or Scream 5, or, these days I'm surprised they didn't call it The Scream, or Screams with an S that looks like a 5. I think they really missed an opportunity on that one. But, so we went kind of with the route that some other films have done with sequels and remakes, in a way that it kind of focuses a little bit more on those new characters, it felt like. We did get some carryover, but one character played by Jasmine Savoy Brown, who was excellent in this, is kind of serving as our new Randy in a way, for lack of a better term, or a new film fanatic kind of character Sounds like I'm diminishing her role. I'm not. I think she actually did a much better job. They kind of built upon what that kind of character would be in this a lot better. And it's very updated, she really mentions a lot of stuff currently about remakes versus reboots and requels and what's been happening, not just in film, but specifically with horror. When people like these titles and they want to bring that feeling back, sometimes you get a remake that's kind of okay, like Fright Night, let's say, and then you get ones like Total Recall, which I think 17 people globally saw that film. Anyways, what is this film about, Scream 5? So, 25 years after a streak of brutal murders shocked the town of Woodsboro, California, a new killer dons a ghost-faced mask and begins targeting a group of teenagers to resurrect secrets from the town's deadly past. So, many people seem divided on this entry. I mean, imagine that. Everybody was completely unified in loving Halloween Ends and that Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Netflix. But yeah, of course it's going to be divided because I think people are really holding on to what they feel from the originals, and it's kind of difficult to bring a new entry and that's really going to please everyone. If they tried to please everyone, I think we would have gotten a very vanilla film and it would have just been mediocre. Personally, I like it when films get a bit divided, where you got people who love it and people who just, it really didn't hit home for them and they just move on. But I feel like in this one is where they really tried to pull away from parts 2 and 4 the most, and even some ways from from 2 and 3, and in some ways to pull away from part 4 as well, to try to make this its own thing and lean more into these new characters. Because we get a lot of new blood brought into this one, no pun intended, but that is cool. A lot of new blood brought into this one with some major connections to the town, and even to a previous character, as well as taking out another one of the survivors from the first film. But what was nice was having not just the connection to other characters such as Billy Loomis, but this de-aged or deepfake version of him worked surprisingly well for me. I think it's because they used it very sparingly, not very close up, and kind of played off as like this hallucination. So I think you get that suspension of disbelief. You know that Skeet Ulrich is not that young. You know they didn't film this 25 years ago. So the way that they presented it really worked well for me, and I think it's a perfect usage of that technology. We also get, of course, like I said, the new blood versus the legacy characters, and it's actually something that kind of comes up in the movie. The ones who are new and really under threat, and the ones who've survived this before 25 years ago and the other instances since. So we get them kind of working together to try to team up and figure out this mystery. We get some carryover from part 4, like I said. And all around, I feel like the layout for this film was much better compared to even the 3 installments before. Even though I really did like part 4, this one kind of spoke to me a little bit more. My only gripes would be, one, these people are very resilient. You really need a suspension of disbelief as a character gets shot or stabbed, but they're still able to hold their own in a fight. And this whole thing that I mentioned was a good idea that they didn't do in the first one, with just having them be random psychos. This one kind of felt that way, just 2 people, kind of psycho, teaming up. It was just too much of a reach for me on that. But, and for some reason they used the Broken Arrow theme song again for Randy. But none of that was enough to take away from the overall pace of the film. I really enjoyed it a lot. I really feel like they ushered in these new characters, where if none of the legacy characters came over to the next film, I would have been fine with that. But I can see in the trailer, I know at least Courtney Cox is in it, from what I can tell. But overall, with part 5, very fun movie. It left me satisfied, a lot more than wanting to nitpick any of those little details that I didn't like about it. Both of these were really interesting, parts 4 and 5. And now that I've, rewatched 5 again, really enjoyed it. I'm very excited to see what they're going to try to do with part 6. Because, I don't really know where they're going to go with it. I know I've only seen one trailer. I believe it's going to the city. Don't really know much about it. And I haven't even caught on to if they are presenting this as the final in the franchise or just another installment. Are they going to leave anything else to be explored? Or are they going to continue with, further installments with different copycat ghost faces? I don't know. I guess I'll see Thursday night when I go and check out that early screening of Scream 6. And that will be spoken about in my final video coming out on Friday morning. Well, it may not be my final video. For all I know, in another year or 2, they'll do another movie and I'll have to do another entry for this. But at any rate, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon to get notification for when I put that up. Should be sometime on Friday morning. But at any rate, thanks for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.